In part 1 of this series, I proposed the idea that science and religion are locked in a mortal struggle because each embrace a set of values which are diametrically opposed to each other. These are core values that guide our society, our culture, and our institutions, and as such, cannot coexist forever. One will eventually be victorious, and the other will die a slow, agonizing death right there on the vine. Last time we talked about the rejection of authority in science, but this time I want to talk about one of the values that just kind of naturally grew out of that rejection of authority. When you reject at its core the idea that someone or some institution is or should be the sole source of authority in any given field, you've basically just become a Democrat. Not this kind of Democrat. This kind of Democrat. When there are no authorities, the world suddenly becomes a very democratic place in its broadest sense. Everyone is potentially a person with the right solution for whatever problem we might face. We don't look necessarily to one institution or person or body to answer our questions or direct our investigations. The rejection of authority is an empirically inspired acknowledgement that knowledge and discovery are open to everyone and anyone, regardless of race, religion, gender, political affiliation, or any other innate or chosen characteristic. There is an egalitarian streak in science that embraces equality and loathes privilege. The scientific process is the very essence of a meritocracy. If you've got the goods, science doesn't care who you are, where you came from, what you believe, or who you love. All science cares about in the end is results. And if you can back up your findings, you, whoever you are, can usher in a new paradigm. This is why a young woman from a Catholic country at a time when women weren't allowed to do, well, anything really, was able to win not one but 2 Nobel Prizes, one in physics and the other in chemistry, for her remarkable contributions to our understanding of radiation. Abrahamic religion generally takes the opposite approach. Its embrace of authority means there's always someone or something, a holy book for instance, that has the final say and must be followed. There is no consensus or debate, nor is there any interest in public opinion or putting matters up for a vote. Catholics, for instance, have the Pope, who can speak ex cathedra, invoking the doctrine of infallibility as part of the sacred magisterium. Wow, you've got to hand it to the Catholics. They always have the coolest way of saying things, don't they? In this case, I'm right, go suck it. My former religion, Mormonism, goes even farther, claiming to have an actual prophet, seer, and revelator who literally speaks for and with God. I'm told there's a regular lunch date every Tuesday where the prophet and the Lord get together, mostly to see what new movies, books, and music came out on iTunes. As a former Mormon, I can't begin to tell you how many times my brethren and sisterin reminded me over the years, actually warned me is a better way to put it, but they warned me that the church was not a democracy and that I was to follow the prophet or risk great peril. One of the church's apostles put it this way: when the prophet speaks, the debate is over. Has there ever been a nicer way of saying sit down and shut the up? Mormons are so polite you'll think they're Canadians. Even earlier, an official church publication put it this way: when our leaders speak, the thinking has been done. When they propose a plan, it is God's plan. When they point the way, there is no other which is safe. The church may say that the glory of God is intelligence, but make no mistake. They'll take your obedience over your intelligence every time, and they'll rule with abject fear. When there were actual Christian nations, authoritarian rule was justified by claiming the divine right of kings. This idea went so far as to absolve monarchs of any accountability to governmental bodies such as Parliament or the governed. They answered only to God. The king's authority was absolute and unquestionable, and that authority, it was claimed, was derived directly from God, with some even claiming to be the heir of the first king, Adam. In science, there are no popes or priests or prophets. No one has final say. Every theory and every law is open for challenge and revision because science is an enterprise of humility first and foremost. Scientists don't claim to have the truth. only a provisional understanding which could change tomorrow in the light of new information. And that new information could come from anywhere. Even a 26-year-old patent clerk who changed our world with his theory of relativity and the world's most famous equation. In September of 1993, shortly after my resignation from Mormonism, the church excommunicated 6 people in a minor purge, if you will. One of those people was D. Michael Quinn, a Mormon historian who had exposed some pesky truths the church would rather have kept hidden. Another was Levina Fielding Anderson, a former editor of the church's official publication, The Ensign, who had documented decades of ecclesiastical abuse by church authorities. That essay, by the way, was the final straw for me, and I tendered my resignation shortly after reading it. Neither Quinn nor Anderson were part of the authority structure of the church, and their individual contributions to the truth proved inconvenient and embarrassing. But neither could be faulted. Their information was sound, so the only thing to do was to shut them up. And that's exactly what the leadership did, or at least tried to do. For me, this was Mormonism's Galileo moment, when an inconvenient truth coming from someone outside the authority structure was squashed when it should have been embraced. But this was no surprise. For years, Mormon leaders had been openly revealing their disinterest in the truth. Some things that are true are not edifying or appropriate to communicate, said one apostle back in 1985. The Lord made it very clear that some things are to be taught selectively and some things are to be given only to those who are worthy, said another apostle. All men are created equal? I don't think so. And of course, the church authorities are the ones who get to determine who is worthy and who is not. While the Abrahamic faiths have remained top-down, science has moved the world forward with a bottom-out strategy, listening to anyone who can make their case in any field of study. There are no sacred cows, and the endeavor is open to all, not just those in authority. In fact, in science, we often move forward not just by building on what came before, but by sometimes overturning things almost completely, as we did with heliocentrism. Now, don't get me wrong, some of us clearly have great expertise in a given field, and that expertise should be respected. But let's be honest, none of us have all the pieces to this puzzle, nor is it likely that any of us will anytime soon. And that next piece, that piece that will change everyone's understanding of our world, well, that could come from any one of us, without regard to background, gender, race, education, training, or any other characteristic. Good Will Hunting taught us that. That puts us all on even ground, with every one of us being as potentially valuable as any other. And if that isn't the very essence of democracy, I don't know what is.